Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of another spooky podcast.
Hey.
Woo,
Woo!
yay.
It's episode 5.
It's episode 5, guys, and thank you so much for tuning in this week. We really appreciate it.
We really do. It's your co-host, the usual ones, Irma Cornejo
And
and
Karina Reyes.
A. Woo!
But thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. And you guys probably heard my dog just fall from the bed. He's okay, though. But this week we bring you guys a true crime case. And I know, 2 weeks ago, because last week we had our bonus episode, but 2 weeks ago we did do the randomizing and I ended up getting a supernatural, I think. This case I couldn't really pass up.
Yay, I'm so excited. I don't know what it is, but I do know that it's based in India, which is exciting.
Yes, because I did get India, so I did tell Irma, I was like, you know what, I'm just still gonna stick with the place and the location because I'm very intrigued about their cases over there. But man, I was shook because they got some really good ones. I'm not gonna lie. But we are on Apple Podcasts finally after pretty much
Yeah.
harassing them and
They've
calling
known
them
to hate us.
nonstop. They finally agreed to put us on their platform. So thank you so much again, Apple
Yes.
Podcast. But
Thank you. Dang. Episode 4. It took freaking 4 episodes, but we're there.
yeah, dude.
Okay, everybody. So, episode 5 is going to be Karina's episode. And if you guys remember, Karina got India and she got paranormal. But Karina decided to do a true crime. So, we're really excited.
I know. Last minute, I told Irma, I was like, dude, I read about this one true crime case and I'm not letting it go. Like, I want to talk about it. And she was like, girl, this is our podcast. I think we can decide on that. And I was like, okay, good.
Yeah.
But I kind of broke the rules a little bit, but I hope it's worth it because this one's really good. And it kind
Yes.
of, well, a little sneak peek, but it does have a little bit of paranormal in it too. So,
Ooh,
it's,
we love to see it.
yeah, so I was like, it's perfect. It's going to fit in really well with the rest of the episodes that we have here.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to take you guys on a little journey to India.
Yay! I'm so excited. I've been waiting all week for this.
So let's begin, shall we? So, in December 2006, India was gripped by a serial murders happening in Noida, a healthy suburb of the capital of Delhi, where at least 16 children and women were raped and killed. And this was happening in a span of 2 to 3 months leading up to December 2006. So many children were going missing from the nearby slums of Nithari over to and their parents of these missing children were starting to get very alarmed, and obviously the residents around, and the word was spreading really quickly as the population is very high. But unfortunately, the police were ignoring all of these claims and basically just not really paying attention to the parents in terms of their complaints. So obviously the parents didn't really wait around for the police, so they took matters into their own hands and began to do their own research and investigation. As more parents began to look further into the search of their missing children, the police finally started to get a sense of, okay, maybe this is a really big deal and maybe the parents are right. So they started to begin a investigation as well. Unfortunately, the parents were harassed during this time because the police didn't want to waste any resources and money on them, because these parents did and these families were considered lower income. So the police just didn't want to waste their energy on them, because unfortunately, a lot of kids do end up going missing and they just don't really care or even put an effort into looking into these cases. But the parents are very persistent, and that's kind of what got a lot of attention from the neighbors and other residents and even other towns. So they had to do something about it, right?
Yeah, and it's so sad that that happens so often that police don't take lower income
Mm-hmm.
families too seriously. It's so sad, especially when it comes to kids being missing.
Yeah, and the thing about it was a lot of parents were complaining how it wasn't just like, okay, just one child,
Mhm.
right? Or like two, or just like over a span of like years. No, this was happening within 2 months.
That's
So
crazy.
that's 19 children and women going missing between 2 months
Yeah.
in one, certain location. So
It's
that's very alarming. And I don't
yeah.
know why the police didn't do anything about it sooner. they're pretty much kind of brainwashing the parents, making it seem like their kids just voluntarily went missing or left or ran away. But
Mm-hmm.
the parents weren't taking that as an answer. So they were very persistent. And I'm very
Good.
glad they were because it led up to police actually searching towns and whatnot for these missing kids.
That's what's needed, honestly. Once you
Yeah.
get the public going and you put pressure on the police, they'll do it, because
Yeah.
they have to basically serve the community. So it's good that
Mm-hmm.
the parents were so persistent, honestly, because that's a lot of people going missing.
Yeah, and especially about this one girl. And this girl, her name was Payel, and she was 20 years old. And her parents were actually the main ones who kind of organized this between other parents around the location when they were going missing. And they started to look for their daughter. And this is what kind of gathered the most attention because they were very persistent, like I mentioned. And not only that, but they came out with allegations against the police that they were neglecting them and they were being paid off by someone because there was no way that the police weren't paying attention to these crimes. The police finally started doing something about it. So they started looking into Payal and they started to trace back to just her in general, her life and where she hangs out and kind of just finding a lead to see where it would lead to. And they actually ended up finding out that at the moment she was working at this one place. And this place, like I mentioned, is Noida,
Mm-hmm.
and this place is very rich, very wealthy. And she was working as a maid type of servant, and they started to pick up leads from there. Now, while the police was doing all of this, the parents are like 5 steps ahead. They were not waiting for the police at all, and the police was actually moving pretty slow throughout
Good.
the investigation. So they were 5 steps ahead. The parents already knew about
Yes, we love that.
yeah, they already knew where Pal was working out, where, who might have seen her. When they went to go out and search, they knocked on every single door and they ended up kind of finding out that one house, and it's called D5 because of District 5. I'm assuming they go by, obviously, districts. So while Payal's parents were searching for her, another girl ended up going missing around the same time. Joydai, and so her parents sent her off to the tailors and she never returned back. Her parents knew that this was very unusual. She would be back by then. So they were very quick on it though. They were very, because usually
Good.
some parents are like, oh, she'll come. She probably went to a friend's, But no, they were very quick. They knew their daughter. So they were
Yeah.
like, no, there has to be something wrong. So they went out looking for her. And, sadly, they didn't find her, but they were quick on their feet and they started knocking again on everyone's houses like,
Good.
okay,
We
have you
love
guys
those
seen
parents.
her? Like we can't find her. And they ended up knocking on this one house. Like the first situation with Payal, it was
Sketchy.
D5, right? District 5, that's the
Uh-huh.
house, the location. And this one guy came out by the name of Panher, and he came out and greeted them, and they asked him, okay, have you seen my daughter? She passed by here and people were saying that they saw her around here, and after that they didn't really see her after. And he just straight up was like, no, I haven't seen her. I don't know who you're talking about. There's
What?
no little girl who came around here. Usually there's a lot of people that cross the street because it was a pretty busy street. Like it was pretty much like on the main street. So he kind of said that as well. Like, oh, like a lot of people pass by here. So I'm not really sure who you would have been talking or referring to. So her parents kind of lost faith in that. So the parents right away went to the police after not succeeding with their search at the moment. And again, which is super annoying and it pissed me off so much, but the police again dismissed it as, oh, she ran away and she'll reappear eventually. Like little kids just like to hang out with their friends. Anyways, in December 2006, two Nithari residents reported that they knew a location of the remains of children who had gone missing in the previous 2 years. Now, these two Nithari residents were parents. So again, the police were just like, oh, like here they come again, with their BS or whatever, right? So it's a lot of dedication for sure from the parents, which,
We
very,
applaud.
yeah,
Applaud
very,
them for
very
being
great.
so determined.
Right. Something that's very heartbreaking because you can just imagine how confused and just lost they were in terms of finding their kids. But
Yeah.
anyways, very good for them. And the police were like, okay, fine, like, we'll give it a shot. We'll go and see about these claims. And believe it or not, they actually ended up finding that behind the D5 location of the house, there was a water tank. And around that water tank that ended up bringing like their own special equipment and people, and they did end up finding children's clothes buried under
Yeah.
the soil or whatever. So once the media got a hold of the case and how there's this crime scene happening in their town of Nithari, they just ran it and they started gathering up a lot of people. There was probably like more than 100 people that gathered around that crime scene that day.
Dang.
Yeah, so word spread really quickly. So people got a hold of it. All the parents pretty much
Mm-hmm.
ganged up and they began throwing rocks at the house. They began, you
Oh
know,
shit.
yeah, they began trying to burn down the house. Like they were upset, and this kind of blew up over the past month of December. The CIB got into it.
That's so sad.
Yeah, they actually started looking into two suspects. So this is where we kind of head into the suspects
Ooh.
and who it could have been. And the parents were already suspecting two, right? And again, like I mentioned, Panher, and he was actually a very wealthy businessman, and he was described as a very family orientated, someone who was very wise, had like an aura of like a grandfather. He was an extrovert, so he did like a lot of company. He did like that wildlife, even though he was in his late 60s. So he was obviously having a lot of fun. Mind you, he did have a wife and one son. Like it just created
Mm-hmm.
the perfect storyline. But it turns out not only was he a suspect, but his servant at the time, Surinder Kali, was also a suspect
Oh shit. Yeah.
because so the
Yeah.
parents got a hold of the media and they started doing their own interviews and stuff like that, right? So once the residents started to find out, like, okay, why isn't the police looking into these people? Like, why aren't they looking into the servant? The police would just say, well, he's just a servant. They didn't really look at the servant as a suspect because to them, he wasn't important enough, which is
That's so
crazy,
sad.
right? I mean, sad because that kind of explains how they view
Everyone
people, like
who's
the lower
poor.
income. But
Mm-hmm.
then again, the way they just only emphasize on the rich, wealthy man.
Yeah, and it's also really sad because, like, what if he was someone who did something and they're not
Mm-hmm.
taking it seriously just because he's poor? Like, you should be taking every suspect seriously, regardless of class. I guess I don't understand how India's class system works, so I
Mm-hmm.
can't really speak for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is kind of frustrating, and I could see why the parents are so frustrated and that they want to figure it out on their own, because they feel like they can't rely on the cops.
Yeah, they just didn't want to look into it. But, anyways, unfortunately, there was another side of the story, and it did, in fact, have something to do with the servant Coley. And this is where it gets really intense. So, obviously, Panner had a lot of trust in him, and so yeah, I don't understand. Like I said, I don't understand why the police were really looking into Coley, but whatever. They
Yeah,
eventually did.
yeah.
But they did describe him as a very calm person, very introvert, very quiet.
Hmm.
He was later described as well as very affectionate. And when the police was investigating his side of the family, they discovered that his wife was actually very shocked about the allegations because she never experienced any type of violence or aggression from him. And they
Hmm.
had a daughter at the time, like a toddler, and she was like, no, he would come, not often, but he will come and visit us and he'll stay for like a week and then he'll go back to work. But
Hmm.
whenever he was here, he would always be with me. He would always spend time with me. He'll help me around the house. We'll go and do, run errands together. He was a great
Yeah,
father. He was very affectionate. He constantly told me he loved me. He he was just a really great man. Like I have nothing to say about him. And she even swore on her daughter that he wasn't ever like that. And she never
yeah.
noticed any type of change in character or anything like that. So
Uh-huh.
the police
But
were a little taken back and they were like, well,
yeah,
maybe he is just a nobody. Like maybe we shouldn't even be looking into him because
yeah.
he's
But
obviously seems like a really great guy.
the thing is, like, if you look at serial killers or if you look at other people, they have separate lives. They're two different people. So I feel like you can't just rely on like what the family says. Like, yeah, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they do show that aggression, but a lot of killers don't because they're taking out their aggression on these murders.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna suss him just yet because I don't know who is who is the person, but
Right.
I'm kind of like, I don't want to completely dismiss his testimonials, but I'm not gonna solely rely on those testimonials because people can be different. They
Mm-hmm.
can show you one side and then be different. Same thing with the other suspect.
Yeah, I feel like the police at that time, they weren't really used to getting cases like this, and I when I was doing the research, they really emphasized in that in India things like this don't really occur. So that's why the police were very hesitant in just looking into Kalai, because they were not sure if he was actually a suspect, because so many people would talk very nice things about him. And like you mentioned, a lot of serial killers tend to have that,
Mhm.
that reputation of being very nice. Like for
Yeah.
example, like Jeffrey Dahmer or like
Ted
Ted
Bundy.
Bundy. There's so many people out there that come across as being very nice, freaking
Evil.
serial killers, right? So the police, just like I said, they were new to everything. They didn't really know, how to come across this case, and they just did everything backwards, in my opinion. So yeah, the families ended up coming out saying that the police were again neglecting them. They dismissed everything that they said, and they find it very weird and crazy how the police all of a sudden started taking credit for finding the bodies, for finding the
What?
suspects.
I would have
So
been pissed. I would have been
yeah,
fucking pissed. I would have been like, what the fuck? I did the whole investigation.
yeah,
How are you getting all the credit? I mean,
yeah.
I guess at the end of the day, at least they arrested them, but
Mm-hmm.
come on, at least give the parents credit. Dang.
Yeah, it was crazy. Their parents were also like, oh my God, they're getting bribed. Why the
Mhm.
police hesitated to look into this, because we're talking about a rich man. He could have easily bribed these
Yeah.
police officers to let it go or dismiss everything, which two police officers did end up getting suspended and fired because of
Oh
this.
shit. Okay.
Yeah.
That's like
So,
how it is in Mexico too. Like
uh huh.
honestly, if you have money, you have influence. Like
Yeah.
you can make stuff like just go away.
Yeah, which it was gonna, well, in my opinion, I feel like they were gonna get away with it, the police officers, because, they had been just like and dismissing everything since the beginning, but
Mhm.
because the media got a hold of it and it blew up and it
Yes.
went
And
international. I mean, people were covering from all over the world when
oh
this was
shit.
happening back, and that's why they decided to do something about it, because they're like, oh shit, people are looking at us. So they did end up firing two police officers that the
Dang.
parents went to in the beginning, and they totally just didn't want to pass it over to any other higher ups.
Mhm. Damn, the tea is bubbling.
Yeah, dude. And so they got Panher to the station, police station, and Kalai to his servant Kalai at the station, right?
Mhm.
And it was crazy because I was looking at the like videos on YouTube and just doing my research, and the people were pissed, Irma. Like they were throwing rocks
Shit.
at them, and I'm talking about like beating them the fuck up. Like here in America, like you take someone into custody, they're kind of, it's more of a private thing. It's just you're just
Yeah.
followed by like the police, and the
You're
media
kind
is
of
to one side.
protected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to one side. But no, the people were like
Oh,
onto them.
really?
Like they were kicking the fuck out of them. They were like throwing
Uh,
rocks.
the parents are pissed though. What do you expect? For them to be like, "Oh, hey, let me give you a handshake." Of course not. Like
Yeah, they were
they're
pissed
pissed.
off, and like the women were just like, the women were kicking ass, dude. But
I love it.
yeah, they were definitely doing their justice, but obviously the parents were not having it. That was not enough. They wanted to actually get justice
Mhm.
for their kids
Yes.
and for the
And they
young women
deserve
who were going missing, which also included a few younger boys as well.
it. Oh,
So not it was not only women; it was also younger boys.
yeah.
In total, like I said, it was six. It was 19. I'm sorry, 19.
Oh shit, that's a lot.
Yeah. So after a very long day of being questioned by the police, Panher actually denied everything. He
Mhm.
declared his innocence from the start. But Coley, on the other hand, was all over the place in terms of his story. He didn't really have an alibi. So the police started to notice all of the odd behavior coming from Coley. So they started to question him further and further. After a day or two of being interrogated and questioned by the police, Coley ended up confessing to 12 out of the 19 crimes committed against the innocent girls that went missing in Nithari. And the police were actually pretty shocked because they didn't really think that he would confess so early on into the interrogation. But he pretty much gave in and said, yes, I did kill those innocent girls. So pretty much after the media got a hold of this news, they declared the murder. And even though Coley had confessed to the murders, the police were like, no, like we're on to Panther. That's the story we want, not about some servant. So they obviously wanted Panther to be the main suspect. But Panther, on the other hand, actually came out saying that the police starved him throughout the whole investigation, didn't give him any food, any water, and that they made him sign 2 blank pieces of paper, which he didn't know what they were for. But eventually, it was him pretty much signing that he did commit the murders, even though none of the writing was there when he signed those blank pieces of paper. And for that, he wanted his own lawyers to look into this case.
I also feel like the police are frustration like built up because they have all this pressure from the media, like you said, like it was worldwide, and all the parents and everybody looking at them that they're like, we just gotta just get a conviction, you know. And
Yeah, that's
I
pretty much what they wanted, but they weren't
yeah.
still looking into Coley, even though he legit came out saying, like, okay, it was me, like, I killed. And Coley also ended up confessing that he sexually assaulted and abused Pael during the time that she went missing.
Oh no.
So again, the public is outraged, dude. They go back to the house, they burn that shit, they throw rocks, they just light it up on fire. Like
Damn.
they themselves, the people themselves, the residents, they go and they start doing the investigation themselves again and start digging up the bodies, dude. They didn't even wait for forensic people to
Shit.
come through. They're like, you guys are too slow, we're gonna do this shit ourselves. They're good people obviously for doing that, but then again, you also have to keep in mind that this is an investigation. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're tampering with a lot of evidence that could be used to convict these people.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were just, they're all over the place, and the whole crime scene was just a mess. And it
Shit.
got really bad that the police had to come back and they had to bring the CIB and kind of stop everything. The residents weren't allowed anywhere near, like the whole block for like a month, which is just the residents who live in that block were allowed to come in, but anyone else, they weren't, because a lot of people weren't respecting the crime scene. So when the police were investigating Coley, specifically him, because I really want to talk about him in particular. So once again, the police ended up noticing that Coley was acting weird and he wasn't being, I guess, himself like other people would describe him, and they really wanted to emphasize in him now.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
But not only that, I think that it's weirder that when they did a test on him in terms of his IQ, he scored pretty high.
That's scary. Honestly,
I
the smart people are
know.
scary. That's all the serial killers. They're
Yes,
all really
dude.
fucking smart and it's really scary.
Yet again, the police were confused as fuck. They were like, what the fuck is this dude, Like, he talks like he's dumb. He talks
Yeah.
like he's uneducated.
Dude, I'm so lost. I don't know
Yeah.
who it
So they
is.
were like, what the fuck? Like, this dude over here, like, he's talking to us like he's dumb, like he's disorientated, like he doesn't know how to talk. A lot of people are describing him that way, but he's scoring pretty high when it comes to like him, like the IQ test. Turns out they were right, because he is pretty smart. And let me tell you why. He did mention that the way that he would lure his victims inside the house was when Panher wasn't home.
Oh
He did
shit.
claim that. So keep that in mind. When he wasn't home, and he will lure them in with gifts, chocolates, candy, just etc., and job offerings. So he would tell these young women like, hey, there's a job offering, we're looking for someone to hire, come in, I can interview you and see if you get the job. Which obviously, it's as sad as it sounds, it's a perfect scheme, because
I need the job.
fucking asshole, right?
I know, what a piece of shit. TBH.
So yeah, it's not like one of those things where, oh well, the women shouldn't have trusted him so easily. But I
No,
mean,
because anyone would
yeah,
have trusted him. If someone
yeah.
offered them a job and you really needed it, I
It's
mean,
so
why wouldn't you
scary,
take it?
dude. It's so scary being a woman, because
Yeah.
You might
honestly.
have the best intentions, and you might think everything, like, people have the best intentions for you, right? That
Mm-hmm.
this is a good thing, that someone's offering you a job, and you just don't know who you're coming across or what house you're entering. It's freaking crazy and
Yeah.
so heartbreaking. But
Yeah, that's why you got to tell everybody. Like, you got to tell people around you where you're at, who
mm-hmm.
you're with. Like, it's so important to keep those.
Yeah. Which is crazy because everyone knew each other over there. It's
Yeah.
such a populated place,
Mm-hmm.
and all the neighbors seem to be very close, all the residents, even the towns over, like, they knew who people were. So it's kind of, again, crazy how this happened in one location and they were able to get away with pretty much
Mm-hmm.
19 murders, dude.
God
So
damn. Yeah, but it's not the victim's fault,
yeah, it's
obviously.
not, but it's
It's not their
just
fault.
obviously the predators and the freaking creeps, right? And after they were dead, he made sure they were dead. He would sexually rape them and abuse them right after.
Oh.
It was crazy. He had no remorse for anything, and he still did damage to them, even though they were already, pretty much dead. Once they went to go dig up, like, the remainings of the bodies at the house, they ended up discovering there was other bodies there, and
Oh, no.
children's clothing. It took time to do DNA testing, but they ended up finding out that all of the missing children from those parents were indeed those bodies that they found.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it
so
was,
sad.
yeah, super sad, but it is a little bit of a peace of mind too for the parents, because at least they know what happened to their child. And
Yeah.
even though as gruesome and horrible as it seems, like, it's still, for a parent, they rather know what happened to their child than not know, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The police that handling this case, they were let go of. More people started to be let go of, and even the residents started a whole protest the government to step down.
Good for
Yeah,
them,
yeah.
honestly. Fight for your justice. Good
Yeah,
for you.
so, and one thing for sure, the residents, they're very passionate about things, and they don't take no as an answer. They're fighters.
Good.
And I really admire that, when a little bit of light
Absolutely.
of the crime, but they were fighting and they never gave up, and they were very aggressive with it, and they didn't care. They would hit anyone, dude.
They're the true heroes,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah. So I was like, props to them, good for them. They fought for their children, and that's all that really matters.
Mm-hmm.
So Coley was actually sentenced with Panher. Again, people didn't really want to let go of that storyline, that he didn't have anything to do with it, because it was his house.
I don't know. I don't know how to feel.
Yeah.
Like it's a good storyline, but like if he wasn't there, I mean, if it's a big property, I'm assuming it is because he's rich. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe like they could have hid the bodies and like he would have never known because he's out on business or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But like I said, people were just still not letting go of it, dude. They were still like,
Yeah.
no,
No, I get
he's
it though.
rich, and he could have done
That's
so much to hide it. He could have paid the police, like,
mhm.
he needs to be convicted as well. So yeah, both of them ended up getting convicted, and Panhair was sentenced to death, and so was Coley. In the end, guess who ended up being liberated and freed from it?
Who?
Panher. He actually was acquitted, and he was freed on bail.
Oh shoot.
Right, gets
Oh.
crazy. So listen up, guys.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm shaking in my boots,
So
waiting.
there's a few theories, right? And I kind of want to
Mhm.
go into these theories because I feel like they're key to the case. And let's start off with Panher's maid. So they did have a maid in the house as well, which is crazy because throughout the whole investigation, they
Wow,
didn't
I
really
didn't even think of
mention, yeah,
that.
they didn't mention there was someone else living there. But yeah,
What
there
the
was,
fuck?
there was someone there living other than
Uh-huh.
Polly, and she was a maid, and her name was Maya. And she was in suspicion as well as being an accomplice of Kali of luring the women to the house. So yes, kind of
Oh,
does make sense because women tend to trust other
trust
women.
women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would also be a really great scheme for them to use. I guess they were all giving their own separate rooms, and a lot of these bodies that were found was right next to the room that Maya was staying in the house. So the police were obviously like, what the fuck, right? Like,
Yeah,
how would she,
that's a little sus.
yeah, like, how would
How
she
did she
go
not notice?
unnoticed? But yeah, they ended up interviewing her, and they came to the conclusion that she had nothing to do with it. So
Wait,
yeah.
like at all?
Yeah, like, at all. Like, she was just clueless about the whole thing, but she was living there literally the whole time. Which
And
is
she didn't hear like anyone get killed or
yeah,
nothing?
dude. Okay, the way that she explained it to the police was that Coley would just go outside, mess with the garbage, because I
But
guess
that's a
they
little
burn it.
sus.
Yeah, I guess they burn garbage over there, which is kind
Oh.
of makes
Oh,
sense
okay.
because in Mexico they do
Mhm.
that too.
Yeah.
They just burn the garbage instead of like, so she was like, yeah, like he would just go and kind of burn the garbage and do, his duties as, for what he's paid for. So I didn't really think much of it, and that's part of his job. So I
Mhm.
was just like, that's none of my business type of thing. She did mention that he would pile up garbage, against her wall, and she mentioned that she didn't like that to him, but he just said, oh well, I don't have enough space, like it has to go there. So she pretty
That's weird.
yeah, so she was like, yeah, I just didn't like the fact that he would put like piles of garbage outside of my window and it would smell. But
What?
I was thinking about it and I was like, dude, he would do that so he can hide the smell of the bodies because it would smell,
Oh, duh.
right? I think that he would do that because he didn't want the smell to reach the neighbors and stuff like that. So the neighbors can just assume it was the trash,
Wow, that's smart.
right?
Wow.
So I was like, dang, that's crazy. But the second theory comes from a doctor who lived 2 houses away from the Panher residence, the D5 house.
Mm-hmm.
And Navin Chaudhary was actually investigated years back for the selling of organs, of illegal organs through the
Oh
black
my
market.
god.
Crazy, huh, dude? I was like looking into this shit and I was like, what
What
the fuck?
the hell? That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a scary theory. Honestly, that's like my
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah, and crazy how he lived literally 2 houses from the location where all this was happening from. And they,
Sus.
yeah, sus as fuck. And the police got word of it, right? And their suspicion grew. So again, they took him in for an interview and just for investigation purposes. And to his hospital at the time, he lost his license and he wasn't allowed to practice or anything like that, right? And he was
Yeah.
actually on a watching list. So searches was conducted throughout his property and the investigators found no evidence that connected him to any of the crimes. It's crazy again.
Hmm. I don't know. That's a little weird.
Yeah. And so the parents were obviously not having that either. They're like, no, you probably did
Yeah.
something as well. But I mean, again, claims are claims still, according to the system.
Mhm.
Unless you don't have any evidence, then you can't really do much, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that's
That makes
kind of how it
sense.
is.
Yeah.
What do you think, Irma? Do you think there's must have been some type of connection between the
I
doctor and the crime scene?
I don't know. It's just I sus everybody, to be honest. I think it's all four of them. Fuck it. No, I don't know.
I
What if
know.
like they were all working together? Like they all knew I was like they were like you get me? Like maybe I don't know cuz like ugh, I don't know. Like maybe they just all knew like they were trying to get people missing so they could put it on the black market. But then again, I'm like if there's no evidence, like we can't really
Mm,
say that it's him, you know, which sucks, but we can't really. Like he's a little suspicious, but I don't know.
yeah, that's what
I'm so
I think.
confused.
It is very confusing, and I feel like just you could just imagine how confused the people were
Yeah.
within this investigation because they were just like, okay, who the fuck is it, right? Is it Coley making shit up? Is he covering for Panhair, or is Panhair really the main suspect and he's just trying to blame it on his servant? Yeah, dude, I don't know, it's crazy. But that was one of the theories. And then this one is crazy, dude. I think this is gonna be crazy, and you're gonna be like, what the fuck, bro?
Oh, I'm ready. This whole case is already crazy. I don't
Okay.
even know what to believe.
So this theory talks about payout and kind of sheds light into her a little bit more. The 20-year-old who went missing initially, that's kind of started everything. So they did discover her body in the D5 house, right? The location where they later concluded that she was actually a call girl. Now, keep that in
Oh,
mind because call girls over there, they're known as, I guess, a sort of prostitution, but more of a legal way of doing it. Does that make
yeah,
sense? Then
like
like,
an escort.
and a lot of police just didn't really look into cases when it comes to call girls
Mm,
because it was more of normality for them,
yeah,
or a thing that a lot of married men would do, so they didn't even look into that, right? But they concluded that she was actually a call girl, and it was actually confirmed that she was. And I did mention that Panher was very known for being an extrovert, and something that he did really enjoy was the company of other women. And even though he was married and had a son, And this is where it kind of gets a little crazy because apparently Panher was actually paying payout for sexual services.
But I
And
thought he wasn't there.
this is where it gets crazy because
Girl, I'm losing
people,
my shit right
because
now.
the police were like, okay, like exactly, like Panher wasn't here. So how the fuck, right? Would he pay her for these services? Listen up. So
Okay.
Panher was like, yeah, I would see her. Like, it's true. I would see her and I would pay her for services, right? But Panher came out saying that, like, okay, I wasn't home when that happened. And you can check out my passport because when you travel, they stamp when you're out and when you come back, right? Which the police did confirm that he wasn't there. But what the police is thinking is that Coley tricked Payal into the house and she thought that, okay, Panher is home. He needs my service.
Uh,
And Coley was like, okay, I'm going to offer you money for you to have sex. And when police questioned Coley about it, he did mention that Payal told him, quote unquote, I'd rather have my brother touch me than have you touch me.
oh.
So she was like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And I think he got
Oh
really upset about
shit.
that and killed her. But she was tricked into thinking that Panair needed her
Yeah.
services. So the police were like, okay, he wasn't, so Panair wasn't there. So they
Mhm.
confirmed that he wasn't. It was a really great opportunity for Coley to be like, okay, I'm going to hit a payout and get her to come here and thinking that Panair is
Mhm.
here to meet up with her because they already had like stuff going on. But
Yeah.
when she got there, she was like, oh shit, he's not here. The person that I thought needed me.
That's that that's scary. Honestly, I feel
And
bad for
yes,
her.
dude, it's so bad, dude. And then
Yeah.
hold on, bro, it gets crazier. Turns out the dad was pimping her out and was selling her to pan her
No.
this whole time.
No, shut the front.
It's crazy.
No. Oh, no. Ah,
Dude, my whole face through this whole investigation was like roller coasters because I was like, okay, like I believe one thing, and then the next I was like, what the fuck, you know?
what? It's,
I told you it was gonna be crazy because it is freaking crazy. It goes into a roller coaster, so everyone's pointing fingers pretty much. It gets really messy, but
yeah, like there's like bad people in this whole story, and you're just like, I don't know who it is.
yeah,
It's literally that game. Um,
uh-huh.
like who is the imposter? Who is it?
Yeah, like Among Us, bro. Like, what the fuck, right?
Who the fuck is it? I don't know.
Yeah, dude. And so I was like, oh, dude, like, really? You know, the parents were really looking into the daughter and whatever. But um, I was able to see this interview and it had like English subtitles, so thank God, right? But the father was like, yeah, like I did, you know, pimp her out and stuff like that. But, you know, we were poor, I needed money, and she was a great daughter either way, and I still took care of her, you know? And it
No,
wasn't like I forced her to do it. I just kind of, you know,
suggested
yeah,
it.
suggested and she's accepted it. And I was like, girl, my
But
bitch.
like it's fucked up. I feel like that happens a lot,
Yeah,
poor
dude.
areas,
They
Like
didn't
it's
really
so
have a
sad,
choice.
she didn't deserve to be pimped out,
Mm-hmm.
But
It
like I feel
was
like they have that
awful.
pressure to bring money home,
Yeah.
and it's hard for women, well at least in Mexico,
Yeah.
like it's hard for women to like get a
It
good job,
sucks.
so
Yeah. It really does suck and I feel so bad for her. She was so young, 20 years old, you know.
yeah.
Imagine it's terrible. So the father did come out saying like, okay, yeah, I did. I'm not gonna deny it. I did pimp her out to pan her, and he was paying me a good amount of money for these services. But I made sure she was okay. Like I know who she was with. Like I know what services she was offering to who. It's not gonna take away from the victims, the real victims here. So
Yeah.
and just think about how the other parents must have felt with their children, right? The other parents are not like that. So
I mean, even for her, regardless of her
yeah.
occupation, like she's still a human, and she was
Mm-hmm.
murdered. She deserves her justice too.
Yeah. But Pale's father was actually taken into investigation as well because the police were like, well, maybe you're working with them.
Oh.
Yeah, so it became like a whole thing. But they just,
Hmm.
I'm not really going to go into that because they came out with the same thing where they didn't find enough evidence to conclude that he had something to do with it. He
Yeah,
just picked her
I
out
don't think
pretty
he
much.
did.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
think he
either. Yeah, I don't either. I just felt like they were in a really bad situation as a family. And
did.
unfortunately, like he took measures that he shouldn't have, but cost him the life of his daughter, that he was just distraught. You kind of live with that, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's his fault necessarily. Like, because at the end of the day, like it's all of the killer's fault, whoever it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see where he's coming from and why he
Yeah.
feels guilty. I don't think it was right for him to put his daughter in that situation, but unfortunately, it was a bad choice.
Yeah, I still think it was a terrible choice as well, like you said, and
Mm.
but it's not gonna take away from the real killers who actually committed the crimes. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, even the police and other residents, obviously they don't view the family as they did in the beginning, but they all came with the same
Mm.
conclusion that they really didn't have much to do with it. It was just something that unfortunately happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, that didn't really take much from the investigation, but and Coley ended up coming back into the limelight and he retracted pretty much everything that he said in the beginning, and he was like, no, I'm just covering for Pander. But obviously, he's trying to not get killed pretty much. So
Yeah.
I still think he has a lot to do with it, and he was actually the main killer in my opinion.
I
you
agree.
know he just took advantage that the police would have dismissed him because of his social status and the way that he was portrayed from other people. Like, he thought he'd really get away with it,
Yeah.
but
He
he
sucks.
sus as fuck. Yeah.
And he was acting like stupid, like trying to act like he's dumb when in reality like he's really smart.
Yeah,
And
he was
that's scary.
outsmarting these people. Like, he
That's
was legit
scary.
outsmarting them, and he came up with a really great story because he really pointed it at Panher in the end. And he was like a womanizer and very depressed person. Like, he would constantly be with
Mm.
women.
That's
He's
yeah.
crazy, dude.
I mean, I don't I think he's a huge contributor. I don't know how much,
Yeah.
Panner has,
Mm-hmm.
like how much he contributes, but I mean, he's still like not the best person because he
Mm-hmm.
cheated on his wife, all that. But like, I don't know. I think I'm gonna put all my beans on fucking, what's his name?
Uncoli. So yeah, pretty much that happened. And okay, so it gets a little bit more intense. And don't worry,
Mm.
guys, we're kind of almost done, but I did want to mention these few things, right? So Coley was subject to a lie detector test,
A polygraph test?
and Panher was taken into these tests, right, to be conducted on them. And professionals ended up looking into them and stuff like that. So they came to the conclusion, I'm going to start with Panher, that he was innocent to a certain extent, that he ended up passing the test. Not with flying colors, obviously, but not to the extent that Coley seemed to failed in. So when they were looking into Coley, they did notice he seemed to lie more. But not only that, through all of that, they still didn't declare him as psychotic. He just had fantasies and that urged him to take it out on women. But they didn't declare him psychotic, like mentally ill.
Yeah. What the hell?
Yeah, which it seems like he was fucking out of it, like
Yeah,
psychotic to
he's
me.
crazy. He's
Yeah,
crazy.
but the professionals didn't think so. They were just like, no, he was just put in situations that he had fantasies and he took it out on these people. Um, Apparently there's a truth serum in India that I was not really aware of, and they injected them with that in order for them to tell the truth.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure, I don't know how that was taken in court, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
I
Maybe it
mean,
is a thing. Maybe truth
yeah.
serums are a thing, and
Different cultures.
just because we live here doesn't mean that we're aware of all the other things that other countries do in terms of
Mhm.
cases and crimes and stuff like that. But there is a truth serum that they inject them with, and apparently Panher was the one that passed, and Coley didn't, and they didn't declare him psychotic. Even though through all his confessions and his retracting everything that he said previously, they still didn't want to give attention to that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Tanner ended up declaring his innocence and claims that he was never home when the crimes took place and that he was unaware of the murders. He said the police forced him to sign 2 blank papers, harassing him and starving him throughout the investigation, like I mentioned previously, in order for him to comply. So the CIB actually did come out and backed up Panher's claim that he was out of the country at the time, and he was visiting his family in Australia, his wife and his one son, and his passport did show that he was actually out of the country.
I don't know what to
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah, and so the police traced back the phone, and they came to the conclusion again that the phone was traced overseas. Like, when all of this happened, he was out of the country. Even his phone records show that he was out of the country.
I don't know, cuz like if something sus is happening at your house, I feel like
Yeah.
you would do something about it because then you would be blamed for it. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what I said, you know. When the police went back and looked into the location and stuff like that, and back to the house, a D5 house, right? That's what they call it.
Mhm.
They went back and they did, like I mentioned, they did find the clothing of the children, and they ended up finding like Pel's like purse in Collie's room. So I mean, come on, right? It's kind of obvious who it is,
Yeah.
but the media was not letting go of Panher, bro. They were not letting him off the hook. They freaking dragged him through the mud, you know, and they were like, no, he has something to do with it. So the
Yeah.
people were aggressive about it, and even the lawyers, dude, the lawyers were like, no, he had something to do with it as well. Like, there's no way he could have not known what was happening in his house. Like, 19 murders, like,
Uh,
come on, right?
yeah. Oh, I'm such a flip-flopper. I don't know.
Yeah,
I keep going back and forth, back and forth. Like
yeah. So
uh
Panher had like an alibi, right? He had his location. He pretty much was like, "No, I'm innocent. Like I've been saying that I'm innocent. You know, yeah,
mhm.
this happened in my house, but I wasn't aware of all the murders that were happening. And again, I would travel, so most of these things was done when I wasn't home. So obviously, I wouldn't know,
Yeah.
right?" But again, people are just like, "No, you're a womanizer. Like you constantly had call girls over. Like it was just a great storyline that people weren't going to let go of. But the CIB did come out saying that Coley did confess that Panher did know about the murders, but he just didn't do anything about it, and he would change his stories back and forth. So people at that point were just like over it. We're just gonna sentence this guy because obviously he keeps retracting, he keeps changing his stories, but we all know he has something to do with it, and he was the main suspect, right? The police at least knew. And he ended up confessing as well that he would actually cook the bodies,
Oh no.
and cannibalism was taking place, and
No.
he sexually abused the women after they were dead, would dig them up
Oh.
after they had already been buried,
Oh.
things with them.
Yeah.
And
What a piece of shit,
what a
TBA.
fucking asshole, dude. And that he ended up feeding Panher food
Well,
with
he's
body
stupid because
parts, bro.
he just implicated himself and he just said that Panher had no fucking
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. So it kind of points everything, right?
He's such an
Every
idiot.
I don't know how, but he ended up confessing through it all because he was already gonna
Yeah.
get sentenced, right?
Yeah, he's stupid.
Yeah, so he was like, whatever, I'm just gonna confess everything at this point. So in the end, he ended up confessing pretty much everything. But the police, this is where it gets crazy because I don't know. Even I'm like confused, but the thing is, like, the police never ended up finding evidence to actually determine that was true. So maybe he was lying all along. And it did seem like he was
Yeah.
crazy because he ended up saying that in his dreams this woman in white would appear, and she was the one that urged him to kill. And quote unquote, this is what he said. He said, "Don't know where I get this energy from. I just feel like I have to kill. And that feeling is something that I can't stop," end quote. Which is crazy, dude, because
I don't know. Uh I just like I feel like he's just coming up with stories to make himself seem
yeah,
crazy even though he's
yeah,
not.
yeah, I feel like he,
So weird.
yeah, which kind of something that I want to connect here in America. A lot of people tend to bring up like the mental illness card,
Mhm.
and so they can get like a shorter prison sentence, or they can get transferred to somewhere else, kind of like that.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's kind of the card that he was pulling from. And yeah, it kind of did work though, because the police ended up finding him mentally ill about it, even though the professionals were like, there's nothing wrong with him.
Yeah.
He just had fantasies, and he just
Yeah.
decided to act on them, even though obviously that's sick, but he
Yeah.
was not mentally ill. He's just urged
Yeah.
me to do all of these crazy shit. But
He's changing up his story too much for
yeah,
me to be comfortable. He's a
yeah,
little sus. He's sus.
yeah, he's a dude. In my book, he's it, right? He was it. He's
Yeah.
the one. But yeah, they conducted the polygraphic test on them, and they concluded that Panher was innocent to a certain degree. Keep that in mind as well, to a certain degree, and that he was let out on bail.
Mm.
Again, the public was not cool with that. They're not having it. And Panher's family, they fought for him, dude. They really, really did fight for him, especially his son. Nobody wanted to take up the case at the time, and the lawyers were scared that the people were going to take it out on them. But
Yeah.
one lawyer did take up the case, and he ended up helping Panher get out on bail. But yeah, pretty much Panher's reputation was destroyed, and he was never able to come back from that. His family unfortunately suffered from that. I feel bad for the family too,
Yeah, they're
because
victims
they're
too.
victims. And Kolai's family, his wife and his kids, mind you, she was pregnant at the time as well. So
What the?
yeah, she was pregnant, and I just feel bad for their family. I feel bad for everyone,
Yeah.
because it just, if in my opinion, I feel like everybody was just dragged into it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're paying the price for people that should have, you know, should be the ones paying the price. But
Yeah.
yeah, they were sentenced to death, and again, Penner was let out on bail, and on September 2009, Panher was acquitted. So he was let go,
Oh
right? This happened in
shit.
2006, and in September 2009, he was acquitted. So
Yeah.
that happened.
Hmm.
He was let out on bail. And then later on July 24, 2017, guess what happened? Just guess.
What?
Panher was actually sentenced to death again. And that was
For
it.
what?
That was it.
Oh,
The
for the case?
Yeah. So India's court system actually just awarding them that death sentence to both of them. Pander ended up getting sentenced officially to death. And even though he was put on bail and, all of that, they reversed that shit and they declared him guilty as well with the murders of the 19th
Shit.
woman and children, including boys as well. So it was crazy. It was a long roller coaster. But
Um,
let me ask you this question. Do you think that the Panher is like actually innocent?
and I don't know. I feel like he's probably innocent for sure for
Mm-hmm.
Pyle's murder because he wasn't there. But I don't know about all the other ones. I don't know. I think Kola is for sure guilty. Like
Yeah.
that fool is crazy. Like I don't know. He.
That dude was crazy, bro. He just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how the fuck he got away with so many murders, but he did. And
Yeah.
not until the end, obviously, but for 2 months, crazy. Like he was really snatching these poor girls out of the streets, right?
And he went off like for
Yeah.
19. That's a lot.
Dude, that's
A
a lot.
lot.
So, like, obviously, India, like, they didn't really know of any cases like that prior to this. So, this was like one of their most biggest cases that they've had in the century. I think Coley was bullshitting the whole time.
Yeah.
I feel like he took advantage of the media, kind of looking at Panher, and I don't know.
Yeah.
And then
No.
there's a whole other theory that Panher actually paid the police and he's rich enough to actually do that, which he is, and that he did actually have something to do with it. And he did use Coley as an accomplice. And they worked
Yeah.
together through the whole thing because there's no way that people didn't believe that. He went, this long, like 3 months, without knowing that there was 19 bodies in his backyard.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know, Karina.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that is, well, the case is solved, but the theories just
They're everywhere.
yeah, they're everywhere. They overpowered pretty much
Um
the whole case. So,
damn girl.
yeah, it was crazy. Hopefully you guys liked it.
That was a good case. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
dude.
I'm like still like what the fuck? I don't know. I don't know who to believe. Uh
Yeah. Even
I don't know.
the police didn't know exactly. The police didn't know who to believe, so they just tried both of them for the sentence of death. So the
Um
police were like, well, their parents need justice. So regardless if Banner was innocent, it was crazy.
dang, thank you for covering that. That was a
Yeah.
good freaking
Yeah.
case.
I when I was looking into it, I honestly thought both of them were working together. And when I
Yeah.
started looking further into it, I was like I was
I don't
lost,
know.
dude. I was like, I don't feel like Banner has something to do with it, but then again, it's fucking crazy. So I
Yeah.
was like, you guys need to hear it because
Thank you, Karina. That was amazing. Woo,
yeah.
Karina.
Thank
Karina.
you. Yeah,
Karina.
yeah, yeah. And the
Woo.
and the people go ah. Yes, but For the upcoming episode is gonna be on Irma, so
Hey,
she's
hey,
gonna be
hey.
taking over the Queen of Spooks. So we're gonna in the Queen of Memes. If you guys haven't checked out our social media, you can
Oh,
find
thanks.
us on Instagram at
Another spooky podcast
and on Twitter,
at a spooky podcast.
and you can send us some mail.
A spooky podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah, so if you guys want to hit us up, send us any recommendations, like, hey guys, I really like this episode, but I want to see this for the next episode, or just anything pretty much, any experiences. If you guys have any spooky encounters, please send them our way. Give us a shout out, hit us up, send us a DM, look
Tell
us
your
up.
friends.
Yeah,
Apple
rate us on
Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts,
5 stars,
and
please.
just 5 stars. And just tell your friends about us, and hopefully they enjoy our podcast as well.
Let's find out where my episode is going to be at
Mm-hmm.
and what it's
Hold
going to be
on.
about.
All right, what do you think you're gonna get, Irma? What
Mm,
continent?
hopefully, I kind of want to do like South America or Africa.
All right, let's take a
Africa.
look.
What did I get?
Guess.
Africa.
You got South America.
Hey.
Hey, South America. Do you know a place in South America?
Brazil, bitch.
Dude, I was thinking of North America. I'm so stupid. Anyways. But yes, bitch, you got South America up in this
Hey,
bitch. All right.
is it gonna be paranormals or true crime or what?
You got Peru.
Oh, Peru. Hopefully it's something spooky, something like paranormal.
Okay, because you haven't done one, huh?
No, I've been doing only true crime, so
Okay, let's spin this shit, bitch.
hey. Bitch, did I get true crime again?
Spin the shit again, bitch.
Spin it again, bitch.
You got paranormal.
Yay! Finally! I'm so excited. It's my favorite topics.
Ghosts.
I'm ready for some paranormal.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Spooky Queen.
Hey,
Hey,
woo!
hey. Dude, I'm dead. But guys, thank you for listening to another spooky podcast. This was episode
Another
5. And
podcast.
hopefully you guys enjoy this crazy ass roller coaster of
I really
confusion
did.
and just fucking craziness. But
It's
hit
another
us
spooky
up.
podcast.
Yes, another spooky podcast. Hit us up, send us a DM, and thank you so much for listening. And Karina peacing out, and Lil Spooks.
Little spooks signing out. See you later. Stay spooky, my friends, and I'll
Yeah.
see you next time.
Stay spooky, bitches.
Bye. Bye. Bye.